All right. Well, I wanted to make a philosophy video about the left, about the way there is a certain group of people today that tout themselves as empathetic and, you know, the party of empathy, so to speak. Here's the truth. Leftists are absolutely not empathetic people. They're controlling, they're deceitful, they're, they want to control you, they want to tell you how to use certain language, refer to them by they thems. This is the great plight of our time, I fear, and I've looked at and I've seen for a long time that these people want to flood our countries with immigrants. They want to control the way we think. They want to introduce all these new bizarre thoughts, like all these different genders and this strangeness, and they will boots on the ground, uh, you know round you up and do whatever to you if you don't oblige by them. So the left is not the party of empathy. They are the people who are trying to really degrade and destroy society. They are not empathetic, and you see all these activists in entertainment, and they're wanting to all this diversity and all this stuff. It just like it is destructive to our very core as a person like me. You are a person who is being repressed every day in society, and it's growing more and more and more. If you go back 50 years, people didn't have to compete with so many different ideas as much. The world was more simple. As the world gets more and more complicated, these complicated people complicate the world more and more and more. And I see the great plight of our time being the left versus the right, the ways of thinking, the derangement versus the thought of order and honor. Um, that is our great struggle of our time. And we as Western people have a choice to make. Do you go down the route of, you know, screaming online to avoid, or do you take action and an honorable way in life? Do you just sit back and 99% of people are just going to be complete and utter nobodies for the rest of their lives, and everybody's fighting to be something that they're not really. We are a people who are totally beaten down by the system. You pay your taxes, you pay your bills, you do all this. Why are we having even more of that? More competition with illegal immigrants and immigrants, and foreign work permits, and all these people coming and making our lives harder. Why are we having to bow to leftists who want to go around with all these different flags and throwing them in our faces, and if we don't comply, we are attacked, sometimes physically. It's this thing I've seen. And over time, I've gone from a person who's not very political to someone who is hardlined right, because I see strength in the right. I see a generation of men who are disenfranchised, and a generation of men who don't want to sit down and be told what to do all the time. I came from a very rebellious background. I was always a rebel. I was always fighting against the order. But now what I see is that same order is being used against us. We're being told that we can't have strength. We're being told that the regular normal white dude is somehow a problem. I'm never going to apologize for who I am. I am never going to be ashamed of who I am. I'm always going to stand up for who I am as a person, And if a raging blue-haired feminist leftist doesn't like me, then they can go fuck themselves. Because at the end of the day, our power comes from the fact that they fear us, our power. We are the descendants of Roman generals. We are the descendants of kings and queens, knights, nobles. We are not just a person and people. They're just going to sit down and allow, a takeover of countries. You're seeing this in Australia. You're seeing this in Europe. You're seeing this throughout the US and in Canada. You're seeing it in other countries like Spain and whatnot. You are seeing a rise in the normal man, a man who has conquered the entire planet and has for thousands of years. So I think that the essence of this empathy that comes from the left, that they're the party of, you know, care about your fellow human. Care about your fellow human. Well, what about me? What about the people like me? What about men who feel exactly like me? Where's our empathy? Where are you showing our, peoples any respect? They don't. They don't ever have a method to the way that they act. They are just against kind of us as a peoples. And we've seen in many times throughout history is whenever a group of people is completely repressed, they lash and fight for their just own survival. That's the way. You take 100 people on an island, and 40 of those people are shunned and thrown to the side, and the 60 other people form a community. Those 40 people are going to form and become stronger because they were repressed by the global majority. And that's what I feel is happening to our kind. The great plight of our kind is that you have, people who have deeply betrayed their identity of who they are. And then there's people like us that, are fighting for who they are. And, there's a great saying in Fight Club, that, our great, our great depression is our lives. And that isn't that the truth, is that our ancestors, just think of all the things our ancestors did. And yet, here we are just sitting on computers fighting with each other. No actions, no nothing. Just being a part of this flowing system of checks and balances and imaginary numbers. Um, it's a struggle that the human race never knew it was going to face. So yeah, I mean, if you're a crazed leftist and you think that you're going to be able to just have this society, multicultural, global society where everybody is just equals, you're going to get a group that has been on the top for a long time say, hey, wait a second, we don't want that. And I think that's what you're seeing in a lot of young men. A lot of young men. I cannot be alone in this fact that the, Anglo-European is saying, it's like if you were on a football team. If you're on a football team and, the star player, all of a sudden, the coach came up to him and said, "Hey, you're no longer the head. This other guy who barely can even kick a football. He's now going to be in charge of the whole team." You're not going to be very happy with that, are you? And that's where we have you are, um, you're looking inwards on yourself and saying, this isn't right, and how can you blame them? How could you ever blame the normal people for being like that? So it's a very interesting concept, I think, is that the party of empathy is not really the party of empathy.